right, hi everyone. Welcome to this session. We'd like to talk about filling in the spaces. I'm Anna Chovanec. I'm a second year LIS student at Syracuse University. I come from a theater background and I'm interested in outreach, strategic decision making, and leadership in libraries. And I also am obsessed with radio.
Hi, I'm Katrina. I'm a first year in the LIS track program. I am kind of a queen of all trades. I worked in public libraries for a long time, but I also come from a fine arts background, and I have worked in marketing and large-scale event planning. I am a info news junkie, and I am currently geeking out about experience and user design.
Hi, I'm Carl, and I've just finished my first year in the LIS program here at Syracuse University. Currently, I serve as the representative for my program, and I like to indulge in running, cheesecake, and poetry. My interests are in instruction, assessment, library buildings, and information visualization.
Okay, so what is FITS? Filling in the Spaces is a program that tries to treat the library school environment and experience as a human library in itself. So we try to respond to the immediate educational and informational needs of students in an all-hands-on-deck sort of way. We're organized and supported by the Library and Information Science Student Assembly here at Syracuse, so that's LISA. I'm sure you all have your own LISAs as well. FITS maintains a living document of student interests, informational needs, and gaps in the curriculum, and then we try to match them with other students who are able to provide instruction or support in each of those areas. So that's pretty fun. LISA then facilitates an informal presentation or instruction session, which has live audience and then is also live streamed and recorded for distribution to the rest of the student body and alumni. So a little bit about the history of the program. It started in 2010 when a student, Chris Turner, here at SU, realized that there were some gaps, and he noticed that his fellow students were actually looking to MOOCs and other online courses and resources to fill in those gaps. And he thought, wouldn't it be great if we could actually be those resources for each other? If we could provide instruction and advice and help in these areas that maybe we weren't really touching in our programs. So that's how it started. As you know, in LIS programs, though, turnover is really fast. So FITS has changed hands over the years, and a couple years after it started, the LIS Student Assembly, LISA, took it over and converted it into what is now one of our most successful ongoing programs. So again, we try to treat this as a sort of human library. So students can offer advice in larger format that remains accessible over time to multiple cohorts, even to alumni. And that means that we treat students as resources themselves. So we think that the vendor-customer model that's sort of traditional in education is not really working, or at least not working as well as it could. So we think that a new librarian-based model centered on membership is more appropriate for filling in these gaps. So this is about empowering and engaging the knowledge, the current knowledge, of our fellow students and campus community. And it really works to establish the cohort as colleagues first, which I think is really, really important and carries over across, I know all areas of my life. So as opposed to simply just being we're not just co-students, right? So now we're actually professionals, or at least we're upcoming professionals who recognize the expertise of our peers, which is incredibly important. So we see it as an opportunity for instruction, pedagogy, and presentation experience, which is so important in libraries of all kinds. And what FITS looks like now that it's being run by LISA. It's not its own standalone project, but it's something that LISA has streamlined and has even begun archiving for the future. We think it's a great program. It's flexible, and we're able to address the needs of our peers in a really quick turnover kind of way. So that's one of its main strengths, and we're at the same time able to address these problems, these larger problems in the LIS world, such as evolving standards, limited pre-professional opportunities, and it also allows us to, and this is something that we're seeing currently, to integrate with our online and campus programs a little bit more and enhance them both. We're able to highlight student diversity, encourage student involvement, and also address those curriculum gaps. So it's been really successful so far, and now Katrina is going to tell you a little bit about how we do it.
So how do we fit? In case you want to try to figure out how to implement this for your particular context or your program, we're going to tell you a little bit about how we do it. So first of all, we have a coordinator position, and that position here at Syracuse is currently occupied by the lovely Ryan Perry. He kind of corrals us all. So this role is in charge of coordinating forms. So here at the iSchool, we have very specific event forms that we have to fill out on a very specific timeline in order to be able to do some of these programs. So while you might not have those exact forms, every single program is going to have their specific hoops you have to jump through in those forms, and how to reserve rooms and how to do the technology needs. So that's what the coordinator does. They are the ones that troubleshoot with the administration to figure out what is needed. So additionally, here right now, Ryan is also doing this, but this could potentially be divided up into a separate position. So the archiving needs. Currently, what Ryan will do is he puts up some of the resulting videos on Tumblr, and we have the rest of them archived in Google Drive. So all of the videos are there. There's a spreadsheet with the associated link and the title of the program, the subject of the program, and the person who presented. So yay, metadata. And then as a future maybe step, the administration has been in talks with Lissa to see about using some of these videos as outreach with alumni. So that's potentially there. So we have to figure out what kind of container this is in. Is this a website? Is this on YouTube? How do we make it consumable? How do we make it into a consumable format? So secondly, there are responsibilities that are specific to the student organization that kind of require a broader scale. So you need more people to work for so outreach, advertising, and needs assessment, and kind of word of mouth as well. So outreach, speaking of word of mouth, we solicit presenters. So we say, hey, you're really great in this. We would love to hear about this. Or we monitor the wish list. There's a place on our Google Drive where students can sign up and say, I really want to learn about this. So we try to find people that can fill those spaces. Haha. And then we kind of also monitor the signups and kind of the scheduling and seeing if we have space within the month to even do this. This semester alone, we've already had 4, I believe, and at least 2 of those were in 1 month. So secondly, part of outreach is the advertising. So that includes the announcement. So that goes out to our listserv, that goes out on our social media, that can also be posters. So there's some basic graphic design that's involved. So we design all of the posters and the things that go up on social media, like the little image that's associated with it. But I mean, also it can be, if the person that is presenting has a preference to do their own poster, because that's part of the experience of learning. So if they want to learn a little bit of the graphic design, they can do that as well. And we do general publicity and making sure people are aware of this, etc. All marketing is then branded with our particular logo. So the Lissa logo and the FITS logo. And then kind of moving on to needs assessment, as LIS students, we're all hearing about how important assessment is, and then how also it's important to listen to the needs of your community. And we do this partly by monitoring the wish list, but also we try and formally assess how the program is run. Not necessarily the outcomes, but how it's running. Like, are there any pain points? Is this working for everybody? Are the presenters getting what they need, etc.? So that's kind of the continued happening of this program is the evidence that it is desired. So it's kind of roundabout way of assessing that, as well as the unsolicited sign-up. So people that sign up for it because they just want to do one without us asking is also further proof that people are really into it. So getting into the meat of how we do this, I'm sure you'll figure out a way that works for you, but how we've done it, sometimes for me it helps to know how other people have done it so I'm not starting at zero. We have our system of organization within and within LISA is Google Drive. We use it to file all our things collectively and be able to all access it separately. But within that, we keep a portion that's dedicated to FITS for sign-up sheets and the spreadsheets and the wish list. There's an archive list, as I mentioned before, with all the associated video links and metadata, and then all the video files are there as well. Now, the iSchool has invested in Adobe Connect, so that's what we use to broadcast these sessions. And it also allows us to simultaneously record the sessions and also any of the questions that come in online. And from people who don't necessarily want to have their mic on, but they want to write a question, all of that is recorded within that file. And then kind of moving forward, kind of the things that we were talking about is, do we keep this private or do we have this available publicly? Like, this is an ongoing thing. So on one hand, we want this, some people would advocate that it should be public because it's furthering the knowledge of everybody involved and that can access that. And it's also would be great for putting on your resume. And then on the other hand, this is also, we have to recognize that this is also an opportunity for our fellow colleagues, so to speak, our colleagues to have a chance to trial and error a presentation, to figure out how it works, what their quirks are. Do they need to write it down ahead of time? Do they need to be spontaneous? Like, that's all of those things you're figuring out as you do a session. And do we really want to make that publicly available and without, automatically without their permission, so to speak? And who owns it then? So, the iSchool, as I mentioned before, also wants to use this to reach out to alumni. So how do we contain it? How do we determine permissions, etc.? So all this.
So Anna talked about the history of FITS, what it is and how it began. Katrina talked about the logistics, how to run it and preserve it, and now I'll talk about the day of FITS. We have 3 different programs here at the iSchool. We have the Information Management program, we have the Library and Information Science program, and we have the Telecommunication and Networking Management. Each of these programs has their own representative in student government. As with any good idea, there are 3 parts. The seeds for the day of FITS were planted when Anna, my predecessor, encouraged me to run for LIS representative. My responsibility was to plan an event that would represent LIS students' interests and engage the iSchool as a whole. I reached out to Katrina when I was having trouble brainstorming. First-year students, we started attending filling in the spaces to sort of acclimate and network because we didn't know anybody here. And there was a need to share its success with the rest of the iSchool. Thus, the Day of FITS was born. It's a collaboration between LISA and ISGO. So let's talk about the logistics. First, there was planning. We met with both organizations to discuss the division of expenses. Anna created a Google sign-up form. Then we focused on marketing. We worked with Career Services to hire a photographer who would take LinkedIn headshots as an incentive to get people to come to the event. We created a poster. We sent an email to several listservs inviting distance students, campus students, faculty, and staff. We solicited them for ideas about what they wanted to hear people present on, and we solicited them as presenters. Then we went back to planning. We focused on the minute details. Food, we're still focusing on scheduling and how we're going to do that. We've already reserved rooms. And in the future, right now what we're working on is a brochure in order to begin assessing the outcomes of filling in the spaces. So the Day of FITS is our first trial run at scaling filling in the spaces for a larger audience. Anything is possible, and we're brainstorming how to expand for next year. This symposium which pulls together LIS students across different universities, is actually a good model for how we can scale the Day of Fits to engage both distance and campus students who are searching for separate student run conferences.
So, what is the future of FITS? As we all know, library school is short, and the things that we build may not endure, so we can't get attached. But we see a lot of potential for growth and evolution within this model and within FITS.
One idea that we've thought of, it could really be a larger, more deeply supported model at the school level that would employ potentially some graduate assistants. The great thing about FITS is it's not contained, it's not constrained by the traditional structure of our curriculum. So that means it's agile, it's flexible, and it makes for a great complement to the traditional coursework that makes up most of our degree program. And by making it part supported by the school, it would ensure that it would endure for a little bit longer, at least.
Yeah. Another idea that we have kind of bounced around kind of came up at the after Carl and I went to ALA midwinter, and we were looking to connect with other students, with our colleagues, so to speak, and kind of meet other people to see what they're like. And I tweeted at the conference organizers like, "Hey, are there any student meetups?" And it was crickets. But we really want to meet the other people that are at this unique nexus of their career trajectory, just like we are. And so we were thinking like this could be kind of scaled. It could be done at larger conferences like ALA, SLA, or it could be done at some of the more state level ones, like we go to NYLA, for example, because it's the New York Library Association. So something like that. So there could be like a track that's filling in the spaces. It's kind of like the roundtable discussions that are at the conferences now, but it would focus on LIS education. And I know there was some at midwinter, but it'd be nice to have more of a chance to connect with our fellow students, like who are at this point with us. Yeah, and it would be a way to scale it nationally, I suppose. So yeah, we're still kind of figuring that out, and we would love to hear your ideas and suggestions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so now that we've talked to you about Day of Fits, we've talked to you about the logistics of it and the history, and we can even give you some specific examples. I don't know if you've noticed along the side, there's been ones on media preservation, there's been one on fairy tales. Sturdy did one on comics and building your graphic novel collection within the context of a public library. So there's many different things. So we welcome your questions. Yeah, and Anna is available now live to take your questions. I will be celebrating my birthday.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Alice, and I have sort of what might be a sort of silly question. I am the president of our ALA student chapter here at U of I, and we keep a lot of our documents on a Google Drive, but because there's so much turnover and because there are so many people who have access to it, it gets really disorganized sometimes, so it's going to take us a lot of time to actually clean it out. And I was interested in hearing a little bit more about how you sort of formulate that with so many people having access to things like your wish list. And then maybe hearing a little bit about what types of other things are on your wish list.
Okay, can you guys hear me? I hope so. I'm Anna. I will go ahead and try to answer this question as well as I can. We started using Google Drive only this year. So while it is already pretty full, we're not yet experiencing huge problems with the organization. So I don't know how the future cohorts will deal with what we've given them. But in terms of carryover, we have a guide created for next year. And we're holding a leadership summit here in a couple of weeks that is going to help us with that transition. So hopefully before the end of the year, anything that needs to get fixed in that situation, either within the Google Drive itself or with the structure of it and how we are running it now. If anything needs to be changed, hope that we can address it before the end of the year. So I hope that sort of starts to answer your question. In terms of the wish list, I will actually pull it up really quickly and read off a couple of things. I know that we recently had one about curating comics and graphic novels, which is really fantastic, and that did come directly from the wish list, right? Somebody, I think it was the first year one. In fact, I think it was Katrina. Which she's not here, but but I think it was her, and she asked for some information on how you might go about collecting and understanding the world of graphic novels and comics, and as someone who maybe doesn't know anything. So let's see. I'm going to pull up here. Bear with me. So we have in our Fits folder, I hope everyone can hear me fine. It's so weird to be talking to you.
Great. We can hear you great.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's see. So we have a request for beer tasting, which actually we did last year, and it was pretty fun. Yes, admittedly, it has nothing to do with library information science, but it was a really cool little kind of social experiment. Social media is on our list. Graphic design, entrepreneurship, bookmaking. Those are the types of things that we're looking at now. Oh, and Drupal. So Drupal, I don't know how you say it, but that was one that I requested. I'd really like to learn how to use Drupal. Anyhow, let me think. Did I answer all the parts of that question? I hope I did.
Yeah, that's great. Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, okay. Anyone else? Just have one comment from Kate. Oh, sorry. Hi. So I'm Sveta here, one of the organizers, and thank you for the presentation. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more on how you kind of got some support from your administration to sort of make this a little bit more sustainable, because it's a very cool project.
That's a great question. We don't really have explicit support for the program in a larger context. We basically were operating under the radar for a long time, especially last year. And so they didn't really realize how many of these events we were doing and how much attendance we were getting and how successful they were until this year, when some changes happened in the organization and the management of student groups here at Syracuse, and specifically within the iSchool. It got kind of bureaucratic this year, and so we struggled a little bit because we want our freedom, and it was really awkward to try to advocate for that while asking for their money. But yeah, we're really lucky that it doesn't cost a lot. In fact, it's pretty much free for the most part, unless we, go on a field trip together for a FITS presentation. But to answer your question, we don't have explicit support specifically for FITS as a larger project yet, but I actually think that we will, because as we mentioned in the talk a little bit, we're getting a lot of questions from the staff mainly and faculty who are aware of the program, and they're asking us, oh, well, you know, what kind of stuff are you doing, and can I watch that? And can we send this out to our alumni listservs and use it, you know, when we're asking for their money, asking for donations and stuff? And so I think that with that link, we can use that to really leverage that essentially into a bigger promise of support from them. And I hope actually that it is something that we can actually get graduate assistance in for and pay some people to make it really well organized and make it run a lot better. So even though I think it's running well now, yeah, that's my hope. But that's a good question, and I guess it's sort of a TBD.
Hey, this is Kate McDowell, faculty assistant dean. And I just wanted to say that, first of all, this sounds like an amazing program that you guys have put together. I'm super impressed, much like I am with the current symposium that I'm sitting in this moment, by the way that students have led this and put it together. And I wanted to be sure to mention for folks here that we have two things that have happened this year and one coming up. One was the lightning talks in fall for master's students. Many people know about the Research Showcase, which is much more for doctoral students and faculty, but there's a master's student showcase coming up, first ever, Thursday, April 16th at 6 p.m. And one thing that I was just actually texting Meg and Carla about while I was listening to this, it's our advising staff here, was whether we needed to look for an opportunity to have more student representation. We saw the need, so it's sort of, you know, filling a gap, but I think if we could have more student representation on that, that might be able to offer some similar kinds of support, and I'd be open to hearing other conversations too. So thanks.
All right, great. So thank you so much. I don't know if we want to give them a round of applause or not, but in spirit, maybe. All right. Sure. Yeah, and happy birthday as well. I hope you're celebrating.